Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're out there in the field doing professional pest control, you already know your job requires serious precision, expertise, and, well, a deep understanding of the tools you use every single day. Today, we're diving into the European Biocidal Products Regulation, or the BPR for short. Now, I know regulations can sometimes feel like just this massive mountain of paperwork, but we really need to reframe that. The BPR isn't just a bureaucratic hurdle, it's absolutely crucial. It is the fundamental shield protecting your health, our environment, and your business from some incredibly severe legal consequences. It's literally the law that turns a mere chemical into a legitimate, authorized biocidal product. By the end of this, you'll see exactly how this regulation actually empowers your professional practice. Okay, let's dive into this. We're going on a journey from the macro right down to the micro. We'll start with the BPR framework, then look at biocidal product types, the authorization process, professional versus domestic use, and finally, legal verification and labels. But before we get into the weeds, let's establish why you should even care with a simple question. What actually happens if you apply an unauthorized product on a job? The stakes here are incredibly high. Ignoring the BPR isn't just a minor administrative oopsie. No way. It is a severe administrative infraction. Think about it. If an accident happens or a client gets harmed and you used a non-compliant or expired product, your professional civil liability insurance is completely voided, gone. You are left entirely unprotected. That's why mastering the BPR is about protecting your livelihood just as much as it is about controlling pests. All right, Section 1, the BPR framework. We're taking this from the European Union straight to your toolbox. Back in 2012, the BPR stepped in to replace a really messy, fragmented system from the late 90s. It harmonized the rules across the entire EU through central evaluation by the European Chemicals Agency, or ECHA, ensuring rigorous scientific standards everywhere. Now, what's really interesting about this number, 22, is that it represents the sheer, overwhelming volume of distinct product types regulated by that framework. 22. The regulation doesn't just cover your standard insecticides or rat poisons, it categorizes literally every single chemical or biological product meant to destroy, deter, or control harmful organisms into 22 specific TPs or product types. So let's break down how these 22 types are organized. They're grouped into 4 massive macro groups. Group 1 covers disinfectants. Group 2 handles preservatives, the stuff used in paints or construction materials. Group 3 is your bread and butter, pest control. And Group 4? Well, that's kind of the catch-all for other biocides, including everything from embalming fluids in TP22 to anti-fouling paints used on the hulls of boats in TP21. It's a huge, massive scope. But hey, don't worry, you don't need to memorize all 22. We're going to filter out the noise right now and focus exclusively on what matters to you. For pest control tech, these 5 specific types are the absolute core of your daily operations. You've got TP2 for general surface disinfection and TP4 for food contact surfaces, which is absolutely critical if you work in the food industry. Then we have the heavy hitters. TP14 is for your rodenticides, TP18 covers insecticides and acaricides, so that's your cockroaches, flies, mosquitoes, and ticks, and TP19 covers repellents and attractants, like those pheromones you use in monitoring traps. If you take one single thing away from this section, remember these 5. Using a product outside of its authorized TP for a specific job, that's considered fraudulent use, and for sure, it carries heavy legal penalties. Moving right along to Section 3, the authorization process. Let's look at the 2 tiers of chemical approval. The very first tier is the active substance, sometimes called the materia activa. This is the raw power behind the product. It's the actual core chemical principle, like cypermethrin or brotificum, that does the heavy lifting to neutralize the pest. Before a manufacturer can even formulate a product, its active substance has to be rigorously evaluated centrally at the European level by the ECHA, and it must be added to a positive list. If the active substance isn't approved, absolutely no product containing it can be authorized, period. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole 2-tier process. Think of it like flour versus bread. The flour, that's your active substance. It gets a general, overarching approval by the EU's ECHA, which proves it's fundamentally safe to use under certain conditions. But you wouldn't just hand a client a raw bag of flour, right? You bake a specific loaf of bread. That bread is the formulated biocidal product, where the active substance is mixed with solvents, attractants, and stabilizers. That specific bread must go through a second tier of approval, which is a national authorization. So in Spain, for instance, that's handled by the MSN, the Ministry of Health. Every single specific formulation, concentration, and intended use is evaluated completely separately. So why are some active substances just rejected outright by the ECHA? Well, the BPR contains very strict exclusion criteria. If a substance is a CMR, meaning it causes cancer, mutations, or reproductive toxicity, it's out. If it's an endocrine disruptor, or if it's PBT, persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic in the environment, it simply cannot be authorized. This is exactly why incredibly effective yet highly dangerous chemicals from the past, like DDT or lindane, are totally banned across Europe today. Under the BPR, public health and environmental safety always, and I mean absolutely always, top technical convenience. Let's zoom in even further with Section 4, Professional versus Domestic Use. High stakes on the job.
The distinction here is massive. Products for domestic use are formulated with way lower concentrations of the active substance. They're packaged in small, safe containers and designed so an untrained member of the public can use them safely without any special gear. Professional use products, on the other hand, they contain much higher concentrations, come with incredibly strict application conditions, require very specific personal protective equipment, and demand a licensed, trained applicator. Speaking directly to you, the professional, trying to cut costs by using cheap domestic products on a commercial job is not only highly ineffective, it is illegal, and again, it completely voids your professional liability insurance. You have to use products authorized for professional use. So the crucial point is that with professional power comes professional responsibility, particularly when we're talking about high-risk biocides. Take SGARs, or second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, like brotafacium. These are totally indispensable for controlling resistant rat populations, but they are incredibly toxic and they bioaccumulate in predatory birds and foxes if a poisoned rat gets eaten. Because of that severe environmental risk, the BPR mandates that SGARs can strictly only be handled by qualified applicators using secure, tamper-proof bait stations. Misuse here isn't just a sloppy job, it's a full-blown environmental hazard. And this level of strict control, it gets even more intense when we look at the food industry. When you're applying TP4 products, those are your disinfectants for food contact surfaces, there is a mandatory, legally binding protocol. Step 1, you must remove or perfectly cover all food products. Step 2, aggressively ventilate and clean the area after application. Step 3, you have to verify the complete absence of chemical residues before production can even restart. A single mistake here doesn't just mean a fine. You could literally cause the total shutdown of a food plant, a massive product recall, and you could face direct criminal liability. Which brings us right into Section 5, Legal Verification and Labels. This right here is the technician's ultimate shield. Let's move to and see how this builds into an absolutely obligatory pre-job habit. You cannot just blindly trust what's sitting around in your warehouse. The BPR requires you to verify a product's legal status before you even think about applying it. You need to check the ECHA's R4BP3 online registry, or if you're in Spain, the Ministry of Health's MSAN registry. What you're looking for is to confirm that the product has a valid registration code. In Spain, that's the HA-XXXX code specifically for environmental biocides. You must verify that the authorization hasn't expired or been suspended, and most importantly, ensure that it is explicitly authorized for the specific professional use you intend for it. Now, all of this verification is reflected right there on the product label. Under Article 69 of the BPR, that label is not just a marketing sticker. It is a binding legal contract between the European regulators, the manufacturer, and you, the technician. It legally must display the commercial name, the exact active substance and concentration, the authorized TP, the hazard phrases, required PPE, and safety re-entry times. Let me be clear, if you apply a product in a way that contradicts the instructions on that label, you are breaking the law. Never, ever apply a product without reading and fully understanding the whole shebang first. We've seen just how strict the BPR is, and frankly, it's only going to get stricter as the EU pushes to reduce chemical pesticide use across the board. So I want to leave you with a bit of a provocative thought. When chemical restrictions become too tight, what integrated pest management, or IPM, alternatives are you going to rely on? Because the ultimate future-proofing strategy for your career isn't just knowing which chemicals are legal today, it's mastering those non-chemical alternatives like mechanical traps, environmental modifications, and electronic monitoring. That way, you are completely ready for the regulations of tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, stay safe out there.